All right. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Just waiting to see if there's a couple more people that come in, but we're 1 minute past 12, so I guess I'll start. I'll just start the session, Adam, and see how it goes. Okay, so thank you for joining, everybody. We are just a small group. So, what I plan to do is to give you an overview, just a presentation today, introducing the CSconnected Supply Chain Development Program, and give you some information about how to apply for this fourth and final call. And basically there'll be an opportunity to answer some questions at the end, so you can answer them directly yourself, by just by asking the question, unmuting yourself, or you can put some questions in the chat. We will be recording the session, so if any colleagues have missed it or anybody else is interested, then we can share that link afterwards through our social media channels. So firstly, I'd like to introduce myself for those who don't know me. So my name is Hazel Hung. I'm the Business Development Manager within the CSconnected team. And I guess before I begin with the applicant briefing, I just really want to give an overview of what CSconnected is, for those of you who aren't familiar with us. South Wales so first of all, CSconnected, we are the South Wales Compound Semiconductor Cluster. It's built on a strong heritage of semiconductor manufacturing since around the 1980s. And this is sort of built on 4 anchor companies across the semiconductor value chain, that have all been rooted across South Wales, as well as world-class academic research and development, producing highly skilled talent, both at Cardiff and Swansea universities, all around the same era in the 80s and right through to present day. And around about 10 years ago, the concept of the cluster actually came about. One of the first sort of outcomes was the formation of a joint venture between IQE and Cardiff University, called the Compound Semiconductor Centre, which is now a wholly owned subsidiary of IQE. But was essentially set up as a research technology organisation to bridge that gap between academia and industry. And then we also around the same time had a catapult centre come into Wales, specialising in compound semiconductor applications. And then around about the same time, Cardiff University and Swansea University secured around about combined investment of £150 million for wafer fab infrastructure. So that would have been in photonics, RF, and wide bandgap power. So that really started to form the basis of this collaborative development across the cluster. And so back in around 2020, there was a UKRI funded programme called Strength in Places, and that brought together all these partners under one project, involving very deep collaborative R&D, and also linking in end users like Microlink Devices, but also bringing in public bodies like Cardiff Capital Region and Welsh Government to support the growth of the cluster. So last month we launched our supply chain development programme, and that looks to strengthen links into the sort of wider supply chain across South Wales, but also to the rest of the UK. And so this is all part of the current phase of the CSconnected cluster, which is focusing on growing and strengthening the region through programmes like this, like I'm going to talk about today, but also growing our network through our new membership, framework, which was launched towards the end of last year. And so here are some examples of other partners that we are working more closely with through these new new programs. So the cluster now, focusing on those particular partners that you see within this map of South Wales. It supports 3,140 people within the cluster. So this would be people employed directly and indirectly within the cluster firms. We've had a big growth phase since 2020, so 51% growth since 2020. And in terms of GVA contribution is 436 million in GVA contribution in direct and indirect, and contributes to around about half a billion, in annual sales, around most of which 90% is export. So that kind of gives you the economic footprint of the cluster, and also you can see where we are based as well across South Wales, from Swansea through to Cardiff, Newport, and right across to Caldecott, which is where Microchip are based. And now I will talk more about those core, where the purple dots are the core cluster firms later on. But I just want to talk about CSconnected as an organisation. So we are a not-for-profit organisation, and we exist to support the growth of the cluster. We do that in a number of ways. So there's 4 ways highlighted here through promotion and FDI, skills and talent, supply chain development, and sort of public funding for the cluster. So in terms of promotion, we go to different events across the UK, but also globally as well. We go to a lot of the international events promoting the cluster and our capabilities, attracting organisations that wish to partner with us, but also companies looking to locate within South Wales as well, to be able to work more closely with the cluster. On the skills and talent side as well, we work very closely with local education colleges and universities and other education providers to try and bridge that gap, and that talent gap, and try and bring more talent into the region, and get young people, as young as sort of 10 years old, get them excited about the compound semiconductor sector, and understand that this is there in South Wales, and it's a potential opportunity for young people. The supply chain development area, that's my area. One of the big aspects is this supply chain program, which you'll hear about. And then the last section is on public funding. So we do a lot of work engaging with local government, Welsh government, UK government, policy advisors, just to bring together that collective, that cohesive voice across the cluster, to highlight the importance of what we're doing in compound semiconductor manufacturing and other expertise in that area. This slide just has got some stats over the past couple of years, really, of what we've been doing. So you can see this kind of the scale of the impact. I won't dwell on the figures on this slide, because I do want to get on to the details of the funding application. But just looking forwards, really, in terms of looking backwards, in terms of the last 10 years of the cluster, we've brought in over £1 million worth of investment into the region, and that's not through coincidence. That's through coordinated efforts across the cluster partners, and trying to do more as a collective. Over the past few years, we've really pulled together, particularly through that Strength in Places program, to become a very tight-knit community. But yes, now looking forwards then, looking forwards, our ambition to 2030 is to double the cluster revenue to 1 billion, and also double our people, the employees in the cluster as well, to 6,000 people. And all this is underpinned by, sticky, well-paid jobs across the region. And it's all part of our, I suppose, our forward look to growing our reach. We have a strong focus in South Wales in the compound semiconductor sector, but we also have very strong links across the UK. And so, through this development program, supply chain development program, and also through this membership, we hope to be able to strengthen the links across the UK, but also globally as well. So this is just a quick view, I suppose, of the membership. So if you do want to find out more about membership, then you can have a look at that QR code. But yeah, so on to the supply chain development program then. This is our fourth and final call, but really I wanted to start by talking about the core objective behind the program, which is essentially localizing the compound semiconductor supply chain. And by localizing, I mean either local to South Wales, but also to the wider UK. And the reason for that is, if for buyers, the benefits for that to having a more local supply chain would be that you could get faster lead times, greater supply chain assurance. You could be closer in proximity, so you can get that technical collaboration. But then there's also reduced risk from global disruption, as as we're all very aware of currently. And then on the supplier side, as a supplier, then there's more better predictable demand, reduced logistics complexity, co-development opportunities, and also opportunities to move up the value chain as well. And that all really feeds into the regional benefits of creating high value jobs, increased local spending, retaining IP within Wales and the UK, greater value capture, more capital investment in ultimately building industrial resilience for us as a globally competitive sector. Just really to touch on the fact that, to put this into numbers, the Semiconductor Industry Association in the US had a report a number of years ago to say that every job in the semiconductor industry supports a further 6 jobs in the supply chain. Now, in the South Wales cluster, every 1 job in the cluster supports another 1.29 jobs. Sorry, supports another 1.29 jobs in the wider UK economy. And so really what we want to be able to do is increase that multiplier factor, really benefit from that, and bring more of those high value jobs into the UK, as they're doing in the US. So here's a slide about the call for, and just to give you some numbers and statistics, I suppose. So the main objective is to strengthen the semiconductor supply chain in South Wales. So building on a more resilient supply chain, and really drawing and strengthening supply chain relationships across South Wales and also the UK. And that should, increase linkages to what I'm calling the primary cluster organisations. So IQE, Vishay, Microchip, KLA, Compound Semiconductor Centre, Cardiff University, Swansea University, and the CSA Catapult. So all these core primary cluster organisations. So yeah, we want to be able to, through this program, to increase linkages to these PCOs, create jobs in South Wales, increase spending in South Wales and the UK, but also um, increase sales as well in the same sort of area. So this is a total £1 million grant from Cardiff Capital Region. As I said, it was launched last March. So there's around about half, so 500k remaining that's unallocated for this fourth and final round. The grant value for each project is up. You can receive up to £100,000. If you're an SME, you can receive it's for an SME that it's a 50% intervention rate, and then for micro companies, you can get a 70% intervention rate, but up to a 30k. But I've got another slide on intervention rates later, just to make that more clear. The closing date is in around about 4 weeks' time, so the 17th of April on the Friday. Yeah, okay, so moving on to the semiconductor supply chain in South Wales. So here are the core cluster partners in the supply chain. I just wanted to be able to show where all these firms fit within in the supply chain. So we have IQE, which specializes in epitaxy, and then CSC, which I mentioned before, is the wholly owned subsidiary, and they also do epitaxial development there, so producing nanometer thin layers of material onto a substrate wafer. And then at Vishay, they do wafer fabrication, focusing on power semiconductors, so silicon carbide materials, but also we've got open access fabs at Cardiff and Swansea University. Swansea University focuses on wide band gap power devices. At Cardiff, it's more of a photonics focus, RF, and also quantum applications as well. KLA are a supplier that manufactures etch and deposition equipment that is used by wafer fabrication companies like Vishay. And then also we've got, on the packaging side, we've got Microchip based in Caldecott, who have an advanced packaging centre. And then CSA Catapult, they also specialise in packaging, but also test and characterisation of packaged devices. So yeah, these are our primary cluster organisations. So this funding programme looks at the suppliers that fit into this supply chain. So these could be companies that supply chemicals, gases, other raw materials, wafers, specialist software design in specific to compound semiconductors. There may be some advanced mechanical and electronics services as well. We've got plenty of examples of companies that we're working with currently. Some of the logos shown here are the companies that have got projects with us ongoing, and I've got some case studies later just to show you what the type of projects this program can support. And there's also some other potential companies as well, based around South Wales and the wider UK as well. So the purpose of this program is to as well as potentially strengthening existing links that we have, it's also looking to new companies that may be on our doorstep that these companies aren't aware of, that maybe with some intervention would be able to pivot and be able to be a strategic supplier for these PCOs. So this map here of South Wales just shows the potential of the supply chain across South Wales. There's around about 75 companies on this heat map that show companies that support either produce products or services that are related to the semiconductor sector. And then, of course, this is also really relevant to the wider UK as well, where we've got lots of capabilities, in advanced semiconductor manufacturing, or those, wider ecosystem supply chain activities as well across the whole of the UK. So this programme is looking to strengthen existing partnerships, but also looking at new opportunities to establish new partnerships. And particularly for new partnerships, I think one of the things that you can do is actually engage and meet with these companies. So there's an opportunity next week. Next Thursday, we have an in-person event at Newport. So please come down and see us in Newport if you've not registered already. But this is it's a great opportunity to meet the primary cluster partners, but also we've got suppliers across the UK giving presentations. We've got pitch sessions, a showcase. We've got some tabletops, and also there'll be a panel session as well. So yeah, please do register to that, or find out what it's more about, what it's about through that QR code. Right, so I'll delve a bit more then into the details of the supply chain funding call, and what you need to do to apply for it. So in terms of priorities for the investment, so it focuses on two priorities: priority A, priority B. So priority A is the upstream. So these would be suppliers of the PCOs, and that could be projects to increase productivity and competitiveness, or increase your capacity in line with the planned growth, for example, of an existing PCO, or you could be filling gaps in the supply chain. On the downstream side, these could be, so these would be the buyers, if you like, or potential customers, existing or potential customers of the PCOs, and so you could have projects that would increase downstream activity in the region, or more generally develop and embed linkages with the PCOs. So the projects need to be led by a UK registered company, so they're not led by the primary cluster organisation. They're a supporting partner, if you like. And also important thing to note is that the grants are awarded based on minimum financial assistance subsidy. So that's just to bear in mind, because there's a limit of £315,000 over a period of 3 years. So all applicants need to basically bear that in mind and make sure that they haven't exceeded that subsidy level. So what a project team looks like. So yeah, the sole beneficiary of the funding is the recipient. So the recipient is the one receiving the funding. And I should add that all funding is received in advance to help SMEs with their cash flow. And yeah, so as a recipient, as the sole recipient, you also do need a supporting PCO on the project. So this is really important. A PCO would need to provide a letter of support. So it needs to be just one. If you've got more letters of support from other PCOs, that's great, but minimum it's one. And the PCO has to outline their reasons for supporting the project, and also outline their level of commitment as well. So this could be in-kind contributions. They can act as a subcontractor if they need to be. It could be that on the project they need to recuperate some costs. So there is some level of flexibility here. So we ask that the value of subcontracting doesn't exceed 10% of the grant value. So if the total grant that you're requesting is £100,000, then their subcontractor value should not exceed 10,000. So sorry, it should not exceed £10,000. There are exceptions to this, but there isn't. I've got another slide on that later. And then yeah, there's other subcontractors as well, obviously. So if you've got other subcontractors that aren't PCOs, then they should be listed as well as other partners, say, for example, other potential customers or suppliers that are relevant to the application. So yes, please do include those details. So here are the 8 eligibility criteria for the application. So it's really important to make sure that all proposals actually meet all these 8 eligibility criteria. And the application form is sort of designed around that, and that will be on the next slide. But yeah, the number one is to aim to support the expansion of the semiconductor supply chain. So that's really what is your link to the primary cluster organizations. The second point is, you know, the priority A or priority B. So how does your project meet those priorities? Number 3, address a specific need or opportunity within a PCO. That sort of feeds into number 4, which is where the PCO provides a letter of support that says essentially why they're supporting the project and what their commitment is. Number 5 is deliver economic benefits that wholly or substantially benefit the CCR region, which is pictured here on the right-hand side in the red. So because the funding is from Cardiff Capital Region, then we do require that there is some economic benefit to the region. And by that, that could be creation of jobs, increase of purchasing within the region, or increase in sales within that region as well. So if you're based outside of the UK, sorry, not outside of the UK, if you're based outside of the South Wales region, outside of the CCR region, then all your justification for benefits to the region would I suppose be related to the PCO link. So that is really important. Yeah, so what did I get to next? Number 6, demonstrate how the intervention will lead to economic growth within your own organisation as well. So that's whether or not you're in South Wales or the rest of the UK. So how does it benefit your organisation? Number 7 is to outline what the commercial outputs and benefits would be on this project. And we do ask that that there has to be a reasonable timescale as well after project completion, that you expect these commercial outputs. And again, that would be in increased, what sales increases you might have. It also I think there are some, it's got the word reasonable timescale as well, so that I'll talk about it a bit more later. But there's depending on if it's a project that's linked to development and TRL levels, then there's some exceptions around that as well in terms of what a reasonable timescale means as well. And the last point is to demonstrate how the project supports an innovation or a market differentiator, something that provides a competitive edge essentially to the sector. So on the application form, there's 11 different sections which are outlined here. The first question is basically a pass-fail question about the minimum financial assistance. So yeah, as I said before, just have a check of your minimum financial assistance subsidies and check that you're still within those criteria. I've put on here which questions are directly assessed. So that would be questions 4 to 9. So these all link to the 8 eligibility criteria, which was on the last slide. except for questions 8 and 9, which are then in addition. So that's what are the deliverables and milestones, and also what's the project costs and the justification of costs as well. So it should all be quite clearly detailed on the application form as to what is needed there. And then section 10 is on risks. And then number 11 is just, I guess, a summary of what information there is. If you've got letters of support, just to summarize what you've got there. And you can also add in the fact that you've got project plans and risk registers if you want to include those, if you feel it will strengthen your proposal. So project intervention rates and costs. So this is just to clarify what we mean by intervention rate. So if you're an SME, then you can receive a maximum 50% grant intervention rate, and a maximum grant value of £100,000. So for example, if you if your project is requesting £100,000 in grant value, then you also need to provide £100,000 in matched contribution. So that will be a total cost of £200,000. For micro companies, so the definition of micro companies is linked in the guidance documents, as well as to the definitions, which is the standard definition in the UK. But for micro companies, you can receive up to 70% intervention rate, up to 30k. So if it's so that's a maximum, that's a project value of just under £43,000, equivalent to that, for 30k grant value. But micro companies can receive up to £100,000 in grant as well. It's just after that 30k, then it becomes a 50% intervention rate. So effectively, if you wanted to receive a maximum £100,000 on the grant, then you would need to provide £82,857, it says there. You have to provide that in match. So that is equivalent to around about 54%, 55%. And when we say intervention rate, it applies across each individual cost, each individual invoice. So just as an example, if an item costs £1,000, then the project can then claim £500 in grant value, and then the company then provides the £500 in match contribution. So it's not an in-kind contribution. It's just per item is 50% or whatever the intervention rate is. And if you do have in-kind contributions on the project, so this could be staff time or other costs as well, then feel free to add that onto the project proposal, because that sort of demonstrates the added value and added commitment to the project. Okay, just a slide really on what the programme won't fund. So it won't fund general business development, TR projects that look at R&D or for TRLs at 1 to 3 is a definite no. For projects that are in the 4 to 6 TRL level, then exceptions can be made here, and that's where and it is an exception, and it would be where there's a long-term strategic supplier to a PCO company, and it's projected to lead to high impact commercial and economic outcomes as well. So this is what I was referring to earlier on the eligibility criteria slide. But if you have any questions about that, just drop me an email and we can arrange a time to have a call about that. Projects where the substantial costs allocated to a PCO as a subcontractor as well aren't eligible. It refers back to the 10% limit. Again, there are exceptions if the services are essential to the project, but these has to be costed at cost. and have to be clearly justified in the proposal. Again, that's an area where you might want to have a discussion with me as well, and also have a good chat with the PCOs themselves as well. We also won't fund scoping activities that would sort of justify project feasibility, and that's really activities that we expect to happen before a proposal is put in. And the last 3 bullet points really just to relate to the eligibility. Sorry, relate to the eligibility criteria. So those 8 criteria that were listed, that projects need to address all of those. So on the last slide, I just want to give some examples of what a typical project might look like. So projects can be supporting new equipment, so purchasing or upgrading of equipment. It can support installation costs, commissioning costs as well. It could also support projects that are qualifying new products or services or equipment, or onshoring of new suppliers into the region, or into the UK. So I've got some case-specific examples here. So Pegasus Chemicals is a company that supplies high-purity chemicals to the semiconductor sector. So they're based in North Wales, so they're not based in the CCR region. And they have strong links to IQE and Swansea University. And the project really aimed at installing a new cylinder preparation line. So this is where all the gases go into these cylinders that are shown on the slide there. And the cylinder preparation line was essentially to be able to clean, prepare and refill used cylinders so that they can be used again. It's really helped the company to establish a new in-house capability, and also offer much shorter lead times as well to their customers, including IQE. RAM Innovations is another company based in North Wales. So they are a company that specialises in embedded die packaging. And this project was to develop a blueprint for a Welsh silicon carbide embedded die packaging line, which could be licensed to companies and customers like Vishay. So they've got a strong links to Vishay, and also to other partners in the region, and really the impact of this project was to establish a high volume heterogeneous integration packaging facility in the UK. Quasisemi are a company based in South Wales. So this project looked at developing a TCAD tool for wide bandgap compound semiconductors. And so that was a strong partnership between Swansea University and Vishay and the CSA Catapult to deliver a commercially ready, available software tool for silicon carbide and gallium nitride devices. Photonic, also looking at software, but on the photonic side, a workflow tool looking at design to device of epitaxy. So that's very relevant to CSE and IQE, who are working with Photonic on this project. Here's just a list, and I will share these slides afterwards with people, just so you can see an example. This shows an example of the types of procurement items from the primary cluster organisations. It is, this non-exhaustive list, I should say, but these are some good examples of the types of items that the primary cluster organisations are looking for. Details on how to apply. So here's a link to our website, which has all the information that you need, other than what you've heard today. There's a PDF document it's a guidance document that clearly outlines, all the eligibility criteria, and there is an application form as well. So the application form is it's a Word document, and then that just needs to be submitted to me by the deadline date. So it's all done over email. If you have any questions, then please drop me a line, and I'll be happy to drop onto a Teams call to talk to you about your ideas. Just in terms of other timelines, there will be a panel assessment. So we have an independent panel that will assess all the proposals in early May. I've just put a date there to show that there's a potential pitch session for invited applicants that will be selected by the panel. And so that date is on the 13th of May, but it's to be confirmed. And then applicants should be notified by the end of May, and then projects hopefully commencing by the 1st of June. Okay. So I will take any questions now. Again, I've got a link to a QR code for our event next week as well. Thank you. Let me just see if there are any questions in the chat. Or anybody want to be brave and hello. Oh, hi, Susan.
Hi, it's Susan. Hi, thanks for the info. The event next week then, is it purely focused around this funding call, or is it an event for a sort of wider participation?
So I would say next week's event is broader than just this supply chain call. This funding call will be highlighted as an opportunity, but it's really an event that brings together the supply chain companies across South Wales, but also the wider UK. Because I think not all projects will necessarily fit into this program, and timelines may be off as well. So it's really part of our efforts just to connect more closely with the UK supply chain. So the theme is driving the UK's future industries. So we really want the companies that are presenting are sort of highlighting where, what they do, but also why that's important, either in the UK supply chain and also in the global supply chain as well. And there's pitching opportunities as well.
Yeah, that's good. So I am registered. I was just saying, as I'm going through this, I think we're going to struggle with some of those eligibility clauses again for the actual call.
Well, I'll be happy to have a chat,
it's still
Susan,
a value to go to the event anyway. We'll still support the
and
event
the thing
next
is
week.
that there are also plenty, there's going to be more opportunities, funding opportunities, across UKRI and other funding bodies as well that may be applicable to people. But yeah, it's a good networking opportunity, I think, next week.
Great, thank you. I'll see you then.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I will share my slides afterwards anyway, so you'll have my contact details if you've got questions after that come to mind. There's a question here. Should the application outline all the project KPIs? Yes, so in the application form, there's a table that outlines what your target KPIs are, how many jobs that you expect to create, how many jobs are safeguarded, and all the other ones that were listed on the slides earlier. So thanks for that question. Any other questions before we close? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, everybody, and have a lovely afternoon. And do come along to the supply chain event, next week if you're free. It'd be lovely to meet you.
Hazel.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.